Good morning and welcome to Salford City Council Planning Panel. My name is Councillor Ray Mashter and I'm Chair of the Planning Panel. Given the pandemic, only elected members need to be present during making of decisions in physical meetings. There are a number of officers in the room that are here to support the proceedings today. There's Mr Shuttleworth, who's the lead officer for planning policy in the city. There's Mr Hodgson, who's the lead officer for development management in the city. And there's Miss Edwards, who's the clerk of our planning panel. Further to that, any other officer who will be giving information to the panel today will be doing so remotely. Is that okay? As you'll hear from the beginning, this meeting is also being streamed live, as Bert's just counted us in. Is that okay? The only thing I ask is if you do intend to film or photograph the meeting, could you please do so in such a way as not to stop other members of the public from speaking freely? That's all I ask. Okay, thank you. Okay. Oh yes, and there is one more ask, is that there is a COVID protocol in the room, and if you would adhere to that, I'd be so grateful. Thank you. Okay, over to the order of business. First, the officers will present their submission to the panel. Second, any registered objectives will be invited to speak. Third, any applicants or applicants' agents will be invited to speak. Fourth, any registered ward councillors, MPs representatives will be invited to speak. I'll allow 10 minutes for both sides. If that's 5 minutes, sorry, if there's 2 speakers, it's 5 minutes each. If there's 1 speaker, it's 10 minutes. If there's 3 speakers, please divide again. Ward councillors will get 5 minutes each. After then, I'll close from your good selves and open up the panel, open up the debate with the panel, and we'll focus solely on material planning grounds. And those material planning grounds are the aims of the policies of the local government and the government's national planning policies too. Finally, we'll make a decision made on those material planning grounds. I'll invite the members of the panel to vote. In case there's a motion contrary to the officer's recommendation, then before any decision is made by the panel, we will bring in a senior officer to advise the impacts of that motion that would be contrary to the officer's recommendation. After then, we will vote. All members will vote at the same time, and in case of a tie, I, the chair, have a further casting vote to decide the application. I do hope that's clear. Ladies and gentlemen, decisions will be made today, but I hope when you leave this meeting that you'll feel that you had a fair and equal hearing right throughout the proceedings. Thank you so much. Okay, members, Miss Edwards, would you be so kind to go through the apologies for absence? Thank you.
Yes, Chair. Apologies have been received from councillors Karen Garrido, Sophia Linden, Margaret Morris and John Warmisher.
Thank you. And could we just add Councillor McCusker? I think he's going to be joining us a bit late today. Okay, Miss Edwards, would you be so kind to just go around the room and say who is present as well, just for those who are watching on the live stream? Thank you.
Yes, Chair. The panel members present are councillors Tanya Birch, Bob Clark, Phil Cusack, Jim Dawson, Stuart Dickman, Jane Hamilton, Phil Tresidder and yourself, Chair.
So I make that a total of 8 votes in the room.
That's right, Chair.
Thank you so much. Okay, members, are you happy to include parts 1 and 2 of the agenda? Thank you. Okay, and declaration of interest. Councillor Dickman, I believe you're speaking as a ward councillor for item
5A.
No problem. So before we start that item, I'll ask you to leave the panel, but we're starting with 5B, so please stay where you are. Is that okay? Fabulous. Okay, members, actually to approve the minutes of the previous meeting, but before I do that, we do need a slight amendment. Councillor Cusack?
Thank you, Chair. Although the minutes show that I declared an interest in the Longshore Drive scheme as a director of DeReeve who are involved in the development, it doesn't show that I excluded myself from the meeting for that item. So my exclusion for that item needs including. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, and we'll certainly have that added in. Is that okay? Thank you, Ms Edwards. Okay, members, are you happy to approve the minutes with that, that slight change? I see nods. Is that okay? No problem. Okay, moving on to item 5A, members, which is our planning applications. Our first item will be 5B, which is pages 35 to 46. Mr Stevenson, I do believe you're our presenting officer.
I am, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
I did, and I can see your slides did move, so you have the floor. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this application relates to Parfold Park off Rutland Road, and the proposal before members is the installation of floodlights to the existing tennis courts within the park. So this is a location plan. So the tennis courts are shown here, surrounded by a red line, and this shows you the relationship to the wider park and also to the nearest residential properties. This is an aerial photograph, again, just giving you a bit more context, showing the location of a number of mature trees around the site. And these are a series of photographs just looking across the tennis courts from various viewpoints. So the proposal that members are being asked to consider today is, as I say, the installation of floodlights in order to allow the tennis courts to be used more frequently, into the winter months when the night's drawing in. The height of the floodlights would be 8 metres. There would be a total of 16 installed, and this image on the right hand side shows the location of those floodlights. The orange ones around the outsides would be single lights, and the blue ones that I've shown here would have double lamps on the top of them. This next image is a light spill diagram, so appreciate it's very, very difficult for members to read, but in effect what this is showing is that because modern LED lamps are very, very effective at lighting the area that they need to light without creating excessive overspill to the surrounding areas, this is showing a lux plan, and what it's effectively showing is that on the court area, the brightness is between 400 and 900 lux, which is appropriate for playing tennis. But as you move out to the site, and this outside line here is showing the light level at 1 lux, which I've just shown on the side there is equal to the illumination of a 1 metre square surface that's 1 metre away from a single candle, if that helps you understand. But in effect, it's extremely low and wouldn't cause any harm to the amenity of neighbours. So given that planning policy supports the use of recreational facilities, and you'll see from the report that there will be conditions in place to limit the times when the lights could come on. It's considered that this is a positive scheme which would have no impact on the amenity of neighbours, and therefore it's recommended for approval, Chair.
Thank you, Mr Stevenson. Members, can I just remind you that you do have your planning balance sheet in an email Ms Edwards sent yesterday for this item. Members, it's been, well, there's an officer's recommendation for approval. Is anyone willing to move the officer's recommendation? Councillor President? Anyone else who will second it? And second. Okay, members, it's been moved and seconded for approval. All in favour, please show. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the application has been approved. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move right on to 5A then, members. I understand the applicant isn't here yet, but we did move around the agenda so we could give the applicant time well, extra time to get here. So that's okay. The applicant may join us during proceedings. Item 5A, Mr Ketley, I do believe you're the presenting officer here, but Mr Stevenson's going to help you out with the slides. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair, yes.
Okay, just before you get going, Mr Ketley, Councillor Dickman, all the gold seats are the same price, Councillor Dickman, so thank you so much. Okay, also members, this item is also on your amendment sheet, page 6, and the planning balance sheet is in that email that Councillor Edwards, Miss Edwards sent out. Okay, everyone's sitting comfortably. Over to your good self, Mr Ketley.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, everyone. This application seeks planning permission to extend and alter an existing set of garages to the rear of 26 to 28 Chorley Road in Swinton, with a view to part of them being used as office and workshop space.
Mr Ketley.
Next slide, please.
Mr Ketley, just sorry to interrupt you.
Hello?
We've got an echo again in the room, and so essentially we can hear you loud and clear, but you're coming through rather muffled. Mr Williams, I don't suppose you could help us out, could you please? Would it help if I counted to 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Mr Ketley, would you count to 10, see if you've got an echo at your end?
Yes, of course, no problem. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear now, Mr Ketley. no problem.
Lovely.
Please start again. I hope that doesn't get cut and paste on some comedy sketch somewhere. So.
No worries. So, yeah, just to wish everyone good morning again and reiterate that this application seeks planning permission to extend and alter an existing set of garages to the rear of 26 to 28 Chorley Road in Swinton, with a view to part of them being used as office and workshop space. Next slide, please. So the application site comprises a series of 3 linked garage units with hard landing in front that face onto Broome Street in Swinton. 26 to 28 Chorley Road, which is a former commercial premises that is also owned by the applicant, is located to the east, whilst residential properties are located to the west and north. It is understood that a right of access exists along the eastern edge of the site between Broome Street and the garden of 30 Chorley Road. Next slide, please. This aerial image shows the site and its surroundings in more detail. Broome Street is principally residential in nature, whilst a number of commercial premises are positioned along Chorley Road nearby. Next slide, please. Some photographs now that show the site in its context. So this first one shows the view looking west along Broome Street, with the application site highlighted by the magenta arrow. There are parking restrictions along Broome Street that are designed to prevent non-permit holders, such as those who work at the nearby Civic Centre, from parking in this location between the hours of 10 AM and 3 PM. Next slide, please. This is the view in the opposite direction, looking east along Broome Street. The next slide, please. So the top right image here shows the rear garden associated with 30 Chorley Road, which runs alongside the northern edge of the application site. The existing garages can be seen on the right hand side of the image. This garden area is at a higher level than the land on which the garages are positioned. The bottom image has been taken from Chorley Road. The Broome Street side of this highway is also subject to parking restrictions that permit a maximum stay of 2 hours for non-permit holders between the hours of 10 AM and 4 PM. Next slide, please. So planning permission is sought to extend the existing garages to their western side, which would infill the gap next to the detached garage associated with 30 Chorley Road. The easternmost of the existing garages would continue to operate as a separate unit, with the remaining floor space used as workshop and office space in association with the applicant's electrical contracting business. Bin storage would be accommodated within the workshop area, as can be seen on the plan there, the proposed plan. Whilst there is an area of hard standing to the front of the garages, no formal off-street parking spaces would be associated with the development. The proposed hours of operation are 8 AM to 6 PM, Monday to Friday, and the proposed layout there just highlights the position of the extension in yellow. Next slide, please. These are the existing elevations. Next slide, please. And these are the proposed elevations. In addition to extending the garages to the side, the applicant proposes to raise their height slightly and add a new shallow pitched roof. Alterations to the front elevation are also proposed, including the installation of a new window and roller shutter doors. A render finish will be applied across the front elevation to unify its appearance. Next slide, please. Letters of objection from 9 different address points have been received in response to the application, along with a petition with 40 signatures, also objecting to the development. The concerns raised by residents are summarised on pages 22 to 25 of your agenda packs and addressed throughout the remainder of the officer report. No objections have been received by statutory consultees, including from the Council's Environmental Officer or from the Local Highways Authority, who are satisfied that the proposal would not result in the displacement of any existing car parking spaces along Broome Street or give rise to highway safety issues. Following visits to the site, they are also satisfied that sufficient capacity exists along Broome Street and Chorley Road during the daytime to accommodate the limited parking demands that are likely to be associated with the proposed use, which would be entitled to up to 4 parking permits. Officers are satisfied that the development is acceptable in terms of its impact on the residential and visual amenities of the area, and as such the application is recommended for approval subject to the conditions set out within the report. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Ketley. Thank you so much. Okay, I do believe I have two objectors in the room. I've got Mr Gallassy and Mrs Means. Are you both wishing to speak? Oh, great. Who's going first? Mr Gallassy, please come forward, sir. There's two silver buttons on the microphone. Either one of them is fine. It will turn it on, so okay. Oh, superb. Mr Gallassy, if you'd just be able to tell us where you reside, it just helps with context of your submission to the planning panel. And after that, it's your 5 minutes to speak, sir. Is that okay?
Good morning, everybody. I've been a Broome Street resident for many years. I organised a petition opposing this, which 40 people signed, and it reads, "We, the local residents below, object to this proposal. It will increase traffic levels, reduce amenity, increase parking demand, causing further problems for residents, create noise and disturbance. We do not wish to have new offices and a workshop operating on Broome Street Monday to Friday, 8 till 6. We wish Broome Street to remain a residential area rather than change to business and commercial use." And those are some of the clear planning grounds on which we request that you refuse this. So firstly, it's a deeply unsuitable industrial type use on a residential street. Broome Street and Ogden Street are both residential. People would be adversely affected by the change in character and increased traffic safety and parking issues. The planning report says that the application site is within a mixed-use area. That's a mischaracterisation. Chorley Road, nearby, is mixed use, but it's not on Chorley Road. Ogden Street residents, by the way, were not notified of this application. I don't have time today to go further into the consultation flaws, but suffice to say, if this was being heard at, or if it were able to be heard at Swinton Civic Centre, and if people had actually been notified of this meeting, because notification only arrived yesterday by post, well, not everybody, but many people would have turned up. For your information, insofar as relevant, there's reference in your pack, and it's also a fact, that there's an ongoing planning enforcement investigation by this council, including whether the storage garages in issue here have already been used by the applicant for business use. I can personally attest, as can others, that machinery has been operated from there. A lot of noise and, frankly, numerous problems since the applicant bought and has been developing the land in August 19. Within that enforcement investigation, which is currently on ice, pending the outcome of this process, there's an issue whether the building extension of 26 to 28 Chorley Road was building regulations compliant, and whether permission for change of use from offices and a shop to a beauty salon was needed. I have some proof of this from the council if it of interest. I have the emails if you're interested. The proposed use as an electrical contracting workshop and offices would be a significant change of character on a residential street. As you saw before, next to people's gardens and opposite their houses, no one wants that. This really should be on an industrial estate. And as for the offices, it would be more appropriate to locate those at 26 to 28 Chorley Road, 1A Broome Street, which is all one building, which in fact are already the company registered offices of the applicant's businesses. So when you balance the impact on residents and the change in character and amenity involved, you should take into account that the applicant already has sufficient office space adjacent.
You have a minute left, Mr Garza.
I intend to take 6 minutes, actually. I'm on 4 minutes 20, that's all right. So this use is also contrary to Council Policy ST1, Sustainable Urban Neighbourhoods, which talks of an appropriate mix of uses, and DES7, development will not be permitted where it would have an unacceptable impact on the amenity of the occupiers or users of other developments. In terms of parking, traffic and safety, it's already difficult. The Highways report says there's less demand due to council staff working from home, but they've not been the problem since 2019 when permits were introduced. And the Highways report didn't take account of the wider context, which is that 26 to 28 Chorley Road, operated by the applicant's partner, began trading in November for cosmetic procedures like Botox, and we understand the downstairs will be a hair salon. Staff and customers in that building are already parking in front of the garages, also on Broome Street and Ogden Street, and that will be a major impact when fully operational, and that's not been taken into account. In terms of safety, I've got some photos to show you how the pavement is regularly being blocked and people are forced onto the pavement.
If you'd be so kind to sum up now, Mr. House.
And lastly, I think on equalities, my mother's got a blue badge. If this goes ahead, she'll effectively have to apply for a disabled parking space because she can't go out because of the traffic problem, the parking problem, and actually come back and repark. And that will be her last resort. And in summary, I think it would have been much better for this panel if the quality of the information available to on impact had been of a higher standard. And I think one thing you'd have benefited from would have been an equalities impact assessment.
Thank you, Mr. Gallison. Thank you.
Could I hand to the panel some photographs?
If you pass them to Miss Edwards, and then Mr. Hodgson will have a look at them, and then we'll do that. Mr. Deans, Tom, would you be so kind to wipe down the table for us in between? I'd be so grateful, and then I get to listen to Mrs. Deans. Thank you, Mr. Deans. Would you like to come forward, please, Mr. Deans? Thank you. Hi, Mr. Deans. Mr. Deans, you have 5 minutes. If you would be so kind just to tell us where you reside, it just helps with context of your submission for the members of the panel.
Tell us, sorry?
It just, if you could just tell us where you reside, it just helps with context for members of the panel to understand your submission, where you're coming from.
Reside in Broome Street, opposite.
That's plenty. Thank you. You have 5 minutes whenever you're wishing to speak, Mrs. Deans. Is that okay?
So hi, my name is Dawn Deans. As I say, I live in Broome Street. I fully agree with my neighbour who just spoke, Dino, and many other residents in Broome Street regarding all the issues surrounding parking, traffic, safety and the whole idea of putting an electrical workshop in offices here. However, my other concern is noise. The planning condition proposed is no more than 5 decibels above the normal street noise. However, I have witnessed Mr. Lally's workmen cutting paving stones outside the garages that he proposes to convert into a workshop with a tool that made an extremely loud sound, not to mention heavy clouds of dust. This work went on for a week on and off. I could hear it with all my windows shut and it went on for a few hours each time. Sorry about this. There's been noise from there many other times as well. As Mr. Lally proposes to convert part of the garages into a workshop, you can see my concern here. When looking at a decibel level comparison chart, people whispering to each other records 25 decibels, which is clearly more than the 5 decibels extra noise this business will be subject to. It's not realistic that the workshop won't affect us. I had to give up my job as a nurse due to ill health some time ago, but I'm hoping that I can return to work within the next year or so. To look after my health, as everybody else does, I need rest and relaxation, whether I'm inside or out in my garden. Being in my garden particularly helps me in the summertime, as it greatly relieves the stresses of everyday life, which is imperative to my health and well-being. If and when I do start work again, which I need to do for financial reasons, I just as all my neighbours, will need to rest and recuperate on my days off. We cannot do this with noise and machinery and large vans coming and going all day. And also the banging doors a lot, these big vans. We're advised to open windows for ventilation due to COVID-19, so we're even more affected by noise. Broome Street is a residential street, and as such, my neighbours and I sincerely hope it continues to be so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deans. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I don't have the applicants here, even though they were registered. I'm going to move on to Councillor Dickman. Councillor Dickman, you have 5 minutes whenever you're ready.
Before I start, can you get the pictures up that were sent through?
Sorry, we'll have them up. They are there now. How many pictures is this? Are you going to say next slide, or how's this going to work?
Yeah, so you'll already see that the garages are on the left. What's the next one? Can we move to the next one? So just opposite these houses which were converted in 2000. This was a garage which was converted in 2005. Yeah. Just want to show that when it was developed, there was off-street parking was built into it. And then if you can just show the last slide and leave that one up. Yeah, thanks.
I'm being generous today. Your 5 minutes starts when you start speaking. So.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'm speaking today in support of residents' objections to this planning application, which is supported by my ward colleague, Councillor Kamel, who unfortunately has another meeting so can't be here today. We both also visited the site recently and discussed the concerns with several residents. Some of who you've heard today, and residents who have lived on Broome Street for decades, and they were really distressed about the proposal to put what we consider to be an industrial unit on what is currently a purely residential street with just a few garages. As you're aware, a petition with 40 signatures has been submitted with objections specifically about the impact it will have on traffic, reduced amenity, increased parking demand, and create a significant increase in noise and disturbance. The petition is signed by residents of Broome Street, Ogden Street and Charlie Road. The inclusion of Ogden Street is particularly relevant as the central section of Ogden Street is only accessible from Broome Street and forms part of the same cul-de-sac and the same permit parking scheme. The submission states that these 3 units have been rented out separately and have been used for storage of materials and plant materials, etc. One was used by a building contractor, one as a cleaning contractor, and the final unit, which is still being used by a neighbour. Of note for the panel is that we've had confirmation that following complaints from residents, there is an ongoing planning enforcement investigation of the garages. The investigation is to look at the use of the garages for business. This complaint was submitted in May 2021. However, the case is still pending, and we're told that the officer is waiting to learn the outcome of this planning application before taking any further planning enforcement action. The officer's report in front of you also states that the application site is located within a mixed-use area. There's a former electrical shop which fronts onto Charlie Road, which has offices above. This is incorrect. 26 to 28 Charlie Road is currently an empty retail unit, which looks like it's been refurbished. And 1A Broome Street is the upper floor of the same property, accessed by a door on the side of 26 to 28 Charlie Road, and is partially trading as LMW Aesthetics, which does beauty treatments and not just offices, as stated in the report. It is only on Broome Street because of the side access that has been created from 26 to 28 Charlie Road. The garages to the rear of 26 to 28 Charlie Road are only accessible from Broome Street, face onto residential properties and back onto the neighbour's garden of Charlie Road. The garages are not located in a mixed-use area. As stated earlier, neither Broome Street or Ogden Street are mixed use. They're solely residential streets, and the garages are not for business use, and the planning enforcement investigation, whilst ongoing, clearly demonstrates that they're not for business use. The report also advises that parking concerns are not to be considered as the majority of council employees are no longer working there and are unlike previous post-COVID. However, the permit scheme currently in operation is already stopped employees parking in the streets.
Councillor Niven, just pause for 30 seconds, just 1 second. Mr Williams, are we okay with the technology?
Yes, Chair, it's just looking for a cleaner signal because of too much interference cutting through the building. It just finds another alternate signal and then it'll re-establish itself.
I'm completely convinced you're not a droid of any sort, Councillor Niven, so please start again wherever you need to start from. Is that okay?
I hope I'm not the interference.
No, yeah, I'm sure you're not the interference, no. Leave it at that.
So, as I say, the current operation of council employees.
Councillor Niven, we might need to hear from you again yet, so just 1 second.
Yeah.
Let's just see if we can sort this. But would you let us know when it's best to continue?
It should be stabilised now, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Mr Williams. Start from wherever you need to, Councillor Niven. Is that okay?
Currently in operation already stops council employees parking in the street during the daytime. So a reduction in people returning to the council will have no positive benefits for the residents. And actually the fact that people are already working from home will mean more people and more residents on Broome Street will be working from home, parking on the street. Allowing the garages that should be used for storage to become a workshop with no parking provision will increase the demand further within the permit scheme. This application, if accepted, will result in the introduction of inappropriate commercial development in a residential area. Councillor Kamel and I disagree with the officer's conclusion that it is not considered that the proposal will alter the character of Broome Street. We maintain that the proposal is to convert a small block of garages that should only be used for storage to a larger building which will actually be an industrial unit consisting of 2 offices and a workshop, which has no place in an exclusively residential street. As stated already, Broome Street and Ogden Street are exclusively residential and should remain so. We urge you to reject this application on policy DES 1 of the UDP respecting context and D3 of the local plan layout and access. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Niven, thank you so much, appreciate that. Okay, a gentleman has arrived. Is it Mr Lally? Mr Lally. Councillor Niven, Mr Galaxy, Mrs Deans, I read out at the beginning that I will run a fair and equal meeting, and if the applicant has registered to speak, so I'm going to listen to the applicant now. Is that okay? I do need to hear, and for the good of the panel and balance and fairness, we do need to hear from all sides if they have made themselves present and have registered to speak too. So, Mr Lally, allow 10 minutes for both sides to speak. So the applicants and the objector's got 10 minutes as a group of people to speak. The ward council got 5 minutes, and you have 10 minutes to speak to your application. Is that okay? If you come forward, please, sir. And any silver button on the microphone will turn it on. There's 2 there. Is that okay? Yeah. Whenever you start, sir, I'll start the 10 minutes, and I'll give you a shout with a minute left. Is that okay?
Thank you very much.
Nice one.
Obviously, I'm the applicant now making the application to turn the garages into what we've been told is commercial. The garages have always really been used for commercial. They was used originally for storage. What I do as a building constructor, most of my work is done off-site, same as what it was used for previously. So there's actually 4 port garages. The fire garage to the left-hand side was an asbestos garage, which we was told needed to be removed due to safety hazards, the invasion of rodents and rats. And that was the first job that we did, even though originally it wasn't really in our scope of works to do that originally. But obviously due to the residents, we got rid of that garage. So that garage was pretty much the first job that we did, that garage. left open a space then for a further garage. So our proposals and scope of work through what we want to do now is solely obtaining the same footprint of what was there originally. So originally, if it was there, it was obviously asbestos, which we're all aware.
I can hear you. Sometimes you just get a little twitch in the sound, so just please go on talking through it.
Yes.
It can be a bit off-putting to do it.
So we just want to, what we want to do is encourage the same footprint that was already there. I think the main cause of concern maybe for the residents is noise, which we've took out of the planning, the workshop. The actual word workshop must scare a few residents, which we're aware of. Our line of work, 98% of it is off-site. So we will do construction sites in the local area for local commercial clients. So, like I say, 98% of our work will be done off-site. What we wanted to do with the premises that we've currently got within the garages, to which one resident already actually obtains one of the garages, which we've honoured what we've given him for his rental. He can stay in there, no problem. The middle garage we obtain, which has always been used for commercial use, it's never been anything other than that. It was used for the storage of tools, equipment, and exactly how we're using it today is exactly the same. Sorry, just swap that out.
Cheers. Mr. Larry, just press one of those silver buttons on that one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Sorry. So it was a different building contractor originally that was actually utilising the space. I don't know the building contractor's name, but when we purchased the building, he was actually there. The building contractor, all his equipment and everything was still there. So we've actually naturally just took that building over as the same use. We use it to store our tools, small tools, ladders, some materials, very, very minor if I'm truly honest. But our main scope for this application is to utilise that garage that was originally commercial and the new plot now that's there that was originally an asbestos garage that we removed, and we want to turn it into an admin office area for myself and what we like to call is a workshop. We've actually changed that now and removed that from the planning application. It's actually just going to be used as storage, so it's going to be exactly the same as what it is today. It's just going to be a storage area. The reason why we put on it workshop is because we do portable appliance testing, and we go to offices, some public sector work, and we take away appliances that are deemed in quarantine, and we actually try and repair them. Now, our main source of work and the client that's going to be there is an electrical contractor. So an electrical contractor that's going to be obtaining that area isn't going to be doing any works such as building. The actual main job that the building contractors do is going to be administration and solely just inspections more than anything. But like we've said, we're more than happy to take out the workshop and only work between the hours of sort of 8:30 and 5 PM or something like that. We're more than happy to work with the residents within that. I'm sure the residents have mentioned about parking, which we can actually give 3 parking spaces on site, so we're off-road parking. We've measured it out, and even though highways have deemed it that we don't actually need it, because there's plenty of parking as it is, that we can still offer that. We can still offer 3 car parking spaces off-site, off-road, sorry, on-site. So we've put that in our planning. So with regards to that, it's all solely mainly work that's going to be done within working hours anyway, and it's going to be low noise. There's not going to be any noise really anyway. I know the residents are upset about works that are currently ongoing to 26 to 28 Charlie Road, but I don't think that's sort of necessary within this discussion. Any ongoing works there have obviously been carried out due to requirements. When we purchased the building, it was falling down. We've got images. The gable end was a hazard. We've had a surveyor out and everything needed doing to that building. So everything we've done, we've ripped out and re-put back. It's now being used as it's going to be a hairdresser's retail unit, low level. And upstairs is currently my offices. We're going to office rental upstairs. and we've just made the offices bigger. Originally, there were 7 offices which would have obtained, if there was 7 businesses obtaining that building, they would have allowed 4 permits each. Now, what we've done, instead of having 7 buildings and maximising our profits, we've reduced that, and we've had 4 offices instead of 7. So we've sort of condensed it down to 4 offices in the same space that was originally 7. So the car parking spaces that would have normally been allocated to them businesses, such as 24 car parking spaces across the full building, will now obviously only be somewhere near 16. And that's including, obviously, we can use the forecourt at the front, which the electrical wholesaler was using anyway. So the actual highway parking, I don't truly believe that we're going to be causing any more trouble than what's originally there. I spoke to one of the residents, currently as we stand, and he's using our land between the hours of 6 o'clock and in the morning when he goes to work as parking for off-road parking, which we're fine with. We have no problem. The residents can use it. They have been using it. We've got images of the residents using it. So it's not an issue at all with them using it. As long as during working hours, then we can use it. We won't even be applying as that company, as JL Electrical Contractors, for any parking permits, because, like I say, 98% of our work is completely off-site. We won't be there. It's mainly admin. So I apologise how ill-equipped I am, and how late I am. I do apologise, but I don't believe that the residents are looking at this correctly. The current garage states, and I don't know if anyone's seen any pictures, but the state that the garages are currently in is slightly dire, and we know that, and we've seen that regarding the images that have been sent out on reports, and they are in need of rejuvenation in some way, just to keep with the area, with the money that's being spent on Chorley Road, the highways, the new businesses that's coming in. I believe that these garages would actually complement the street. Broome Street currently at the minute is an old residential street that's being utilised for HMOs, and I think there's 2 HMOs currently residing on Broome Street with 3 or 4 occupants, maybe more. All use cars and all have cars parking on the street. I don't understand how that is being allowed when a small business is trying to obtain what is classed as a commercial site. There's no residential dwellings on that site currently. It's solely garages that have always been used for commercial use. So I think the parking side of it, I don't see us posing any form of risk. The noise, we're not going to be doing anything whatsoever that's going to be noisy. Obviously, currently at the minute, we've been doing noisy works because it's under construction. So, as the residents have been made aware that we are under construction, the shop is under construction. It's been under construction since 2019. Obviously, we hit COVID. That caused us a massive problem. We had to stop works for 6 months.
We've got a minute left, Mr. Lally. You have a minute left.
Yeah. So the actual works that have been carried out have all been done within COVID restrictions, and then obviously problems that we've had with other things. We've had skips on the driveway that the residents have been using. The residents have been putting stuff in our skip, which we haven't got a problem with. We've got proof of this, we've got images and things like that, so we've not got a problem with it. All we want to do is now come to an agreement with the residents where we can all actually work and live happily. I do also believe that area is a mixed-use area when you look at it properly. It's not actually a residential area. When you walk out of Broome Street, as soon as you look, there's businesses absolutely everywhere, all the way around you. So I think to say it's solely residential would be false.
Thank you, Mr. Lally. Thank you so much. Okay, members, I'm going to close on that. Thank you so much for your information this morning. I'm sure the members of the panel will take it into account during their debate. Is any member wishing to speak? Okay. Members, there's an officer's recommendation for approval. Is anyone willing to move that? Oh. Okay. Is any member wishing to speak? Okay, members, I'll bring some of the officer's information in here. Condition 6 was about the noise. Our environmental consultant out there, Mr Mason, would you please enlighten members about how that would be regulated with that minus 5 dB?
Good morning, Chairman and panel. Just checking, can you hear me?
Yes, but a little bit echoey. I'm not going to ask you to count to 10 because I think we might end up on some social media somewhere or something like that. So, could you just try and speak again? Because Mr. Williams might have fixed it instantly. I'm not sure.
Yeah, just checking whether you can hear me.
I can hear you. Can I see? Yeah, I can see nods elsewhere. Please carry on, Mr. Mason.
Okay. Please stop me if the sound changes. The the noise condition as recommended relates to any future external plant and equipment, for example, air conditioning units that might be put on the side or extractor fans that might be put in. The condition actually seeks that the noise level from such equipment will be 5 dB below background at the nearest noise sensitive receptor, not 5 dB above. The reason for that is that we don't want any increase in the background noise level due to such equipment. It's a standard condition that we use on many similar applications in the city, and it stops what we call background creep. It's not relating to construction noise or the neighbour mentioned cutting of flags, etc. That's not what this condition is intended to control. And the other condition that is pertinent to somewhat relating to noise is the proposed hours restriction on the use, which will be 8 till 6 Monday to Friday. So I hope that clarifies it, but I'm happy to answer any more questions.
Yeah, Mr. Mason. Yeah, the internal noise and the noise breakout. So does this condition actually cover that?
This condition wouldn't cover that because it specifically says it's a rating level from external plant and equipment. I didn't consider that potential noise breakout would be a significant issue, given that the extension is going to be an office, and the storage stroke workshop to the side is more or less as existing.
Yeah, I think just members would be concerned with in the title it says it's going to be a workshop, and it might be worthy of giving members some comfort about that noise breakout internally, if a workshop was to be permitted, given any other future usage or any occupier, and so. We might need to
appreciate that, Chair. One of the conditions that we have put on in similar situations in the past is that the doors to the workshop should be closed during except for access and egress, and that will obviously have a significant benefit to noise breakout. As opposed to, for example, if the doors were just left open while works were going on.
Thank you, Mr. Mason. Mr. Ketley, could we write up a condition if this application is approved for later on in this debate? Is that okay?
Yeah, that condition would be fine. Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Kruger, you've indicated to speak, and I'm sorry, I was looking at my sheet. Does anyone else indicate to speak? No. Oh, Councillor Tresidder as well. Councillor Kruger and Councillor Tresidder.
Thank you, Chair. I sympathise with the residents of Broome Street. A lot of this hinges, I think, on two issues. I think visually, that's not one of the issues. I think visual amenity is improved by this development rather than it detracting from it. The two fundamental issues to me appear to be a highways matter on the one hand and the use in what the residents can consider to be a residential area. So I'd like some clarification from the officers, please, Chair, on whether the whole of Broome Street is considered to be a mixed-use area, within a mixed-use area, or whether this application actually verges onto a residential area, abuts a residential area, or whether in fact we shouldn't be calling it a mixed-use area. In other words, where's the boundary? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Appreciate it. Mr. Ketley, did you hear Councillor Cusack there?
I did, thank you. Yes, loud and clear, Chair. In terms of the, I suppose, the character of the area, I think it would be fair to say that the site abuts a mixture of commercial uses which are situated to the east along Chorley Road, and as far as we're aware, the uses to the west along Broome Street are residential in nature.
Short, succinct, and to the point. Thank you, Mr. Ketley. Councillor Cusack, I'm going to move on. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that clarifies it. It abuts a residential area, and I must confess I've got mixed views on this. As I said previously, I sympathise entirely with the residents. However, I think it would be a visual improvement, and I think the majority of the problems with car parking can be solved by highways enforcement, which of course is not a matter for us to put a condition on. So I'm reluctantly, I suppose, to some extent, I would support the officer's recommendation, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cusack. I've got Councillor Tresidden who's next. Councillor Tresidden.
Thank you. I'm largely in agreement with Councillor Cusack, to be honest. I'm sort of mixed views about it, but I'm relatively happy that the officers have done their homework and that the recommendation is sound. I have a question. Councillor Dickman said that there was an ongoing sort of investigation and they're waiting to hear the outcome of this planning panel before coming to any conclusions. But the planning panel is being asked to take into account that there is an ongoing investigation, which seems a slightly circular argument. Can we get some clarification on where we stand with that, please?
Of course, Councillor Tresidden. Often planning applications seek to rationalise the situation after recommendations from planning enforcement. So I'll pass you over to Mr. Hodgson, who's much more versed at this than me.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, you put it quite succinctly already, Chair. It's not uncommon, for breaches of planning control obviously to be investigated up to a certain point, and at some, in some cases we will get applications to try and regularise. We hear about retrospective applications. And so in this case, obviously, whether this was a delegated or panel decision, we are taking into account obviously this application to try and seek to regularise the situation that exists on the ground at the moment. So it's not uncommon, Councillor Treasurer, for that process to be slightly put on ice as it's being put pending a decision by officers or indeed this panel. But yeah, the fact that if a breach has occurred is not determinative of a decision. It's part of the history investigation of the application.
Does that help?
In a sense, my question is that we like to know what conclusion they've come to, and they're waiting to know what conclusion we come to. And it's feel like it's a bit of a blinking match. Who's going to blink first, kind of thing.
I think a lot of the conditions will come from that investigation that's been done. So when you see what the conditions are covering, like the times of hours of operation and things like that, I think they're as good as recommendations from the planning enforcement team before they, and so they're giving it us to regulise on the site. Would that be a fair reflection?
Yeah, I suppose, Chair, I suppose through enforcement, obviously, there's two, I suppose, two phases. There's one, the investigation to gather facts and understand whether there's been a breach of planning control. And then the second stage is, if there's been a breach of planning control, you go through the assessment of, is it harmful? Because obviously you don't automatically jump to, well, there's a breach, so there must be some harm. The process we're now obviously undertaking is assessing that harm through the officer's report that's been presented to you and the debate that's obviously ensuing now. So that's the second stage of a normal enforcement process. You could say, well, could they have come to a view early and decided it? But what they have done is obviously an application has come in, so it's quite right and proper that we consider the application as it stands now before us. Thank you, Chair.
If I could wrap up. On balance, I'd be happy to second Councillor Cusack's motion to follow the officer's recommendation, if that helps.
Thank you, Councillor President. I will bring you in, Councillor Birch, and I've got Councillor Hamilton. I'm not ignoring you. Councillor Cusack, Councillor President, I did suggest at the beginning that we should be looking at a condition to have those doors shut to minimise the amount of noise breakout, because in the application time it says workshop, so that could be a piece of machinery, a lathe, etc. Things like that. You never know, but in the future. So, are you amenable to that extra condition then?
Certainly, Chair.
Yep. Yes, Mr. Mason, I think you've got your answer there. So, if you could self and Mr. Ketley could knock something together, so we got an idea of what it would look like before any decision is made, we'd be very grateful. Councillor Birch and Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, it's not a very straightforward application, and it's quite emotive, isn't it? A petition of 40 signatures and 15 letters of objection. A lot of people have something to say against it, and I agree that anyone is entitled to live in peace without noise, and also smells have been mentioned. On the other hand, it's great to hear that a local business has survived pandemic and they are looking to expand. I mean, that's quite commendable. So it is not a straightforward issue. It's quite complex. It's very emotive, and residents are convinced that their lives will be impacted detrimentally, and the business owner, is saying that the unit has been always used as a commercially, so there is no change in that respect, and that it will improve the visual side of things in the street. So I can't make up my mind at the moment whether, I just understand both sides, and I wish we could find some kind of middle ground. So I was wondering whether visit to the site, I don't know what the rules are during pandemic. Maybe if we could go there and just have a look at the workshop, the size, and just to see what is happening, because the residents are saying there is noise, and there is a possibility of noise in the future because we don't know what kind of machinery is going to be used. The business owner is saying it's just going to be offices, and they're working off-site. I personally can't make up my mind, fully at the moment. So maybe a visit would help, if we could defer the decision today. I mean, obviously the panel was not coming forth to start with a lot of convincing arguments. Just wondering if that's an option, Chair.
I'll leave it for colleagues of the panel to decide if they would like to go on a site visit or not. Is that okay, Councillor Birch? I'll leave it to colleagues around the panel table to decide if they would, see if they would like to go on a visit.
I was just wondering if we were allowed at all during the pandemic.
We're in a place where we don't want to say we're not doing visits, but they are going to be extremely difficult in this current climate to organise. And we have had a lot of visual aids today, and we do have those. We've had a lot of evidence from people about how that street works and how it doesn't. We can get you more information about how that street's functioning at all from officers too. But I feel I'm comfortable. I have enough information to make a decision. It's going to be a difficult decision, as you say, because I too can see both sides here, and that's why I'm seeking to try and. I'm very aware that the application is policy compliant, and that's why Councillor Cusack and Councillor Tresidden have moved and seconded. But I can see where we are in that balance. I'm trying to mitigate little bits through conditions that we can do. Yeah, so that's why I say I'll leave it to members. If members really feel that they want to go on a site visit, they will shout, and we'll go on a site visit, and we'll figure out the logistics. But at the moment, it'd be great difficulty, and I feel I have enough evidence to make a decision today. But that's my opinion, and I'm sure other members have their opinion too, and they're more than entitled to them. Is that okay?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Councillor Hamilton?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I think I understand. I'm happy to pass this as well. I think I understand where the residents are coming from, but I also think it's fantastic that we have an applicant who's willing to work with the residents as much as he is, and I'm happy that it is policy compliant as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Dawson, I hope your back's okay.
Yes, as I said, mixed views on this, and the building looks like it's going to be an improvement to what's there. But I'm concerned about some of the possible future changes. You know, we've heard this morning that these offices will be mainly for administration, but there's 2 windows in the office, so that tends to tell me that anybody in those side offices accommodation may be there for many hours of the day, and then I think what traffic will be connecting. It's not just administration while the workmen then leave site, you know, and go to where they're working during the day. You know, it seems to me like it's being built for regular use during the day. Somebody will be in that arrangement. So I'd like to know just a little bit more about that, about how much it would put on traffic, you know, people coming and going during the day. And really, is it just administration first thing in the morning? And my last difficulty is what happens in the future. If they sell the business, somebody else takes it over, what regulation controls do we have for keeping the same conditions on in the future?
We can keep the same conditions on, yeah, they'll stay there, but that was my worry with the workshop title. If that did change hands, then I think it's very important to keep those doors shut. Yeah, so I think that, because of that noise breakout. Yeah, I hear what you're saying about the traffic. I think we need to remember this area has been very well regulated through its residence parking scheme. It does benefit from that. Also, as Councillor Cusack was saying, he's quite right, is that regulating the highways is a devolved thing actually, right to the local residents as well as the local councils. And I think we should put an informative on that. We should have a look again at this site and just make sure everything's ticking right for that street, vehicle-wise. I think that's what we need to do. Okay, members, it's been moved and seconded for approval with the extra condition of keeping the workshop doors shut. The officers have sent me a slight word. The doors to the workshop area shown on plan, whatever that reference would be, shall be kept closed except for access and egress during business hours. Is that okay? All in favour of that, please show. Any abstentions? And anyone against? Okay, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, the application's been approved. Thank you so much for your attendance. Members, we're going to break now, and we're going to start at 10:45, and that's 7 minutes, so we will have a 15-minute break. So shall we start at, I know I was counting to 10 earlier, so shall we start at 5 to 11? Is that okay? Because that's the best I can do with time. I am a bit time dyslexic. Mr. Williams, would you be so kind to pause the live stream? I'd be very grateful. And Good morning and welcome back to Salford City Council Planning Panel. My name is Councillor Ray Mashter and I am Chair of the Planning Panel. Given the pandemic, only elected members need to be physically present and make decisions, and so officers of the Council can join meetings remotely. The planning officers presenting items to this panel today will be doing so remotely. There are 3 officers in the room supporting the planning panel. There's Mr Shuttleworth, who's the lead officer for planning policy in the city. There's Mr Hodgson, who's the lead officer for development management in the city. And there's Miss Edwards, who's the clerk of the planning panel. This meeting is also being streamed live, as you would have seen at the beginning. If you do intend to photograph or film the proceedings, then my only ask is that you do so in such a way as not to stop other members of the panel and other members of the public from speaking freely. That's all I ask. So with the camera, if I could just ask that you don't end up behind the elected members. That's the only thing we have, is we don't like anybody standing behind the members. Is that okay? Thank you so much. Okay, further, my only other ask is that, that you adhere to the COVID safe protocol that's in place in the building. Thank you. Okay, over to the order of business. First, the officers will present their submission to the panel. Second, any registered objectors present will be invited to speak. Third, any registered applicants or applicants' agents will be invited to speak. And fourth, any ward councillors, MPs or MPs representatives will be invited to speak. I'll allow 10 minutes for both sides. If there's 1 speaker, that's 10 minutes. If there's 2 speakers, it's 5 minutes each. If there are 3 speakers, please divide again. And then ward councillors, MPs representatives would get 5 minutes each. After then, I'll close from your good selves and I'll pass over to the panel for debates, which we will focus solely on material planning grounds against the aims of the city councils and the government's national planning policies. Finally, a decision will be made on those material planning grounds. I will invite the members of the panel to vote. If there is a motion contrary to officer's recommendation, then before any vote is taken, a senior officer will be asked to advise the panel of the merits of that motion. I will invite all the members of the panel to vote in any motion that is put to the table. We will all vote at the same time. In case of a tie, I, the chair, will have a further casting vote to decide the application. I do hope that's clear. Ladies and gentlemen, decisions will be made today. Those decisions may or may not please everybody, but I'd like to think that you feel that when you leave this room that you had a fair and equal hearing right throughout the proceedings. Thank you so much. Okay, members, the first application of this second session this morning is item 5C. That is page 47 to 72 of your agenda. And it's also on your amendment sheet, pages 2 to 5. Ms Corcoran, can I hear your good self?
Hi, good morning.
I can hear you loud and clear. Would you go forward a slide and back a slide just to make sure everything's fully functioning? That's fabulous, Ms Corcoran. Over to your good self. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. This application concerns the erection of a 2-storey secondary school with associated sports facilities, parking and substation at Longshore Drive in Little Holton. The whole site was previously associated with Longshore Drive Secondary School, which was demolished in 2009. The southern 2.5 hectares is the subject of this application. The area to the north was the subject of planning application to panel last month, which was approved for residential development. There is a significant levels difference between the 2 portions of the site here. The aerial photo puts the location plan into further context. The immediate area is predominantly residential in character, with some industrial property to the east. There is a number of trees located to the southern and western boundaries. The trees to the southwestern corner are associated with the recreational designation here. Development concerns the erection of a 750-place secondary school, which responds to an identified need. National planning policy outlines that great weight must be given in decision-making to the need to create schools. The proposed building will be located centrally within the site, which avoids the mine entries being built over and allows sufficient landscaping to establish a sense of placemaking and soften the impact of the car park. As indicated by this slide, the car park and access will be situated to the east. The car park would provide 88 parking bays with vehicle access here. The main portion of the car park is primarily formed in a loop to allow vehicles to move through the car park in a forward gear. The car park also incorporates a pick-up and drop-off area to avoid waiting on Longshore Drive. A shared pedestrian and cycle access is provided here, which follows the Desire line to the main plaza area here. The covered cycle store, providing 48 spaces, is situated here for both students and staff, with the possibility of expansion in the future. A mugger will be situated to the west, an all-weather pitch to the south, with an area of open space to the southeast. The south-facing courtyard is positioned within the between the blocks, to provide recreational space for students at break times, in conjunction with the use of the mugger. The school building will be mainly 2 stories in height, with the exception of the main hall and the sports hall, which breaks up this very long elevation. The main body of the school building will be constructed from traditional buff brickwork, using grey brickwork to create interest. Textural bricks will be provided between the windows, and the use of a string course would run through the horizontal of the building. The sports hall volume will be broken down by use of a brick base, and then to the upper section, dark grey aluminium cladding. The cladding takes reference from the grey masonry, used as an accent to the honeyed buff masonry as the primary tone to the main hall. The simplest approach to the sports hall provides a functional design that does not detract from the more interesting design features of the main building and aids with wayfinding. The dark grey cladding works well against the sky and also the backdrop of the landscaping. The Star Academy logo would also provide an area of interest within the elevation. Just a point of note, the white area in reality would actually be purple. And that logo is obviously a bit clearer in that bottom image there. There are 2 entrances to the building. The main entrance is articulated with a projected canopy and hard landscaping to the frontage and soft landscaping surrounding. Secondary access is articulated through a recess and is positioned here. The windows will be set within the brickwork, providing reveals, the shadow line of which would add depth to the elevation, which you can see clearly in this image. These images provide a view of the other elevations, which work on a similar, if not the same, design principles as the front elevation. Obviously, this is the courtyard referred to earlier. The design of the building essentially represents a U shape, with double height spaces to the dining area, main hall and sports hall, which are green on this floor plan here. Teaching and sports spaces are within the arms of the U and are positioned so these spaces can benefit from natural light. This section provides detail of the relationship between the sports hall here and the proposed residential development to the north. You will note the levels difference between the 2 here. There is considered to be sufficient distance between the sports hall and the proposed habitable windows to the north with regards to dominance. However, the proposal would overshadow a small number of residential gardens. Officer opinion is that when weighing this potential harm against the benefit of providing a much needed educational facility, the proposal is on balance acceptable. There has been 1 letter of objection and 2 of comment from local residents, which are summarised in the report. Further to points made on this slide, non-balanced recommendation of approval subject to conditions is made concerning the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Corcoran. Thank you so much. Just before I carry on proceedings, members, I did miss out one slight thing. Just so the people watching on the live stream are aware of who is present member-wise in the room. Miss Edwards, would you just read out who is present, and then I'll carry on with the proceedings after that.
Yes, Chair. The members present are Councillors Tanya Birch, Bob Clark, Phil Cusack, Jim Dawson, Jane Hamilton, Phil Tresidern, and yourself, Chair.
Okay, I can make that seven members.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms Edwards. Okay, moving on, members. Members, you did receive your planning balance sheet for this application. I just need to remind you, it is in your email from Ms Edwards yesterday. Is that okay? Right. At the moment, I don't have any objectors present who wish to speak. Is that correct? Anybody here? Okay. And I don't have the applicants or applicants' agents. Is that okay? No problem. And there are no ward members. Oh, Mr Worsley. Okay. Sorry. Mr Greenall and Ms Burke-Hargreaves. That's correct. Are you wishing to speak? Oh, no problem. I do apologise. Without Miss Edwards, I wouldn't know my right from my left most days, so I really wouldn't. Who's going first? Are you both speaking? Okay, 5 minutes each. Is that what's going to work? Is that okay? No problem. Please come forward.
Thank you.
It's, I did say 10 minutes for both sides, so it's 5 minutes plenty for
oh, yeah, no, absolutely, yes. No I don't want to exceed any time today for you.
No problem. Over to you, good stuff, Mr. Greenall.
Thank you. I'm Charles Greenall. I'm Head of Capital Programmes for Star Academies. I thought just probably introduce Star Academies in the first place. So we're a mixed multi-academy trust delivering schools across England. Quite a diverse network of primary and secondary schools, and we're a value-based organisation, so we're committed to enhancing social mobility. So our efforts are geared towards raising aspirations of children and young people in areas of social and economic deprivation to improve their life chances and help them succeed at the highest levels of education, and then obviously assisting them as they go on into employment. And we've got 30 schools currently and a further 9 in the pipeline, those 9 hopefully all delivered by the academic 25 to 26 year, of which Salford Leadership Academy is one of those. There is an evidence of need for the school in the area, and we've been working very closely with the local authority in the choice of site and the development of the project. We do, as a trust, have quite specific design guides about how we deliver our schools. We've got lots of lessons learned from our previous deliveries. And that's about making sure that we've got very well-considered, successful learning environments that are delivered. Calm, conducive experiences for students. If they're happy and safe in our schools, if they feel cared for, then we believe that they can be the best version of themselves. The planning officers obviously talked to you a little bit about the design of the building and that very traditional brick aesthetic. And I think from STAR's perspective, as well as giving us sort of longevity, that traditional aesthetic that we strive for, because we're very, very heavily involved in the scheme from the inception and through the design process, is about echoing older established educational establishments and civic buildings. We think it speaks of a stable learning environment, and that's a strong part of our brand. You've seen that we've obviously introduced quite a significant level of brick detailing in this building as well, just to kind of re-emphasise that quality. And whilst we're prioritising an educational experience, it's a very constrained site, but we are cognizant of the need for community use in the area. So we have a dedicated community entrance that gives us access for those internal sports facilities, the drama, the main hall, actually including the refectory, and then safe and secure access to our external sporting facilities as well. And that kind of traditional low maintenance building, because we have a dedicated estates team, means they can concentrate on maintaining the efficiency of a school and promoting that healthy environment. And I think particularly at the moment, I think with COVID, the fact that we've got a U-shaped building and all the spaces have got access to natural ventilation It, you know, meets with our criteria at the moment about, you know, providing that, you know, containing safe spaces for children without particularly the effect of COVID that we've got. And I would, you know, be grateful if the committee, you know, can see the thoughts and the approach that we've taken with the submitted design, and that you look favourably on it when you make your determination. And, you know, if we're successful, then obviously it's open to any members of the planning committee. We'd be more than willing to give you a site visit so you can see the development in progress. And we do excellent chocolate biscuits on site as well for those that are interested in that. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Greeno. Thank you so much. There's a hot topic, biscuits, in this city council, can I show you? So,
they're always important things, Chair.
Ms. Burke-Hargreaves? Yeah, no problem. I'm not a stickler for time, but you have 6 minutes to speak, because it's I have to run a fair and equal hearing, so I've offered 10 minutes to both sides, so it doesn't matter if both sides are not here or not. Thanks, Gemma. Thank you. Over to you, good self, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Chair, members, good morning. My name is Anne Burke-Hargreaves. I'm the planning agent for this application. Charles has introduced Star Academies to you and explained their role in the design, delivery and future operation of the school, as well as the reason the school is needed in this specific location in Salford. In terms of planning considerations related to the scheme designs, Jade's report does a very good job of explaining and addressing these, therefore I don't want to repeat them in detail now, but perhaps I can just highlight a few positive aspects of the scheme. So the developed design allows the maximum area of external space on the site while meeting the necessary internal spatial and operational requirements, so it's a good balance on the site. The orientation of the building creates a south-facing courtyard between the school blocks for pupils to use during break and lunch. The building is set well away from nearby residential properties to the east, south and west, and the sports hall element will be set at a lower level than the proposed houses to the north, minimising its impacts, as Jade explained. The planting and external material strategy will assist in blending the building into its context. The layout includes a generous entrance plaza where pupils enter the canopied main entrance or the recessed community entrance, as Charles explained. There'll be 88 parking spaces, including electric vehicle and accessible spaces, which will adequately cater for the anticipated number of staff, and there'll also be secure covered cycle parking. There's a delivery service drop-off pickup bay at the side of the car park, positioned for easy access and egress without impeding general car park use. Separate pedestrian and cycle access is provided along a broad shared path, which is a safe route with no crossing points required. A robust palette of plant species that are safe for school environments will be used, ensuring a variety of forms, colour and seasonal interest. The new hard surfacing has been chosen to provide a low maintenance and robust finish that will meet the intensive uses associated with a secondary school, and the external building materials have been selected for their robustness and suitability, as Charles has explained. There's 2 3-metre acoustic barriers to ensure no impact to the development on nearby residential properties. We'll achieve a 8.3% carbon dioxide saving with the design. The scheme protects the vast majority of trees within and adjacent to the site, and the proposed planting scheme replaces those lost at a ratio of over 2 to 1. Ecological and SUDS enhancements planned include meadow planting, rain garden planting, native and species-rich hedgerow planting, shrub planting, bat and bird boxes, log piles and hibernacular, and permeable surfaces for the hard courts and the all-weather pitch. As per the recently approved residential scheme adjacent, this scheme will also invest a further £45,000 in improvements to pitch drainage at Amblecote playing fields, which will increase the playing capacity of the pitches and deliver a net benefit to sports provision locally. And in partnership with the residential proposal adjacent, the scheme will also deliver traffic calming improvements along Longshore Drive, including traffic humps and a speed limit reduction, which will make improvements that the council has not been able to prioritise to date. In addition to these positive outcomes, it should be noted the scheme is compliant with council policies. In conclusion, the applicant has worked closely with the local planning authority to develop a well-balanced proposal that will be of significant benefit locally, and we respectfully request your approval. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Burkhoff. Thank you so much. Okay, members, just remind you about your planning balance sheet. It's in that email. Anyone wishing to speak? Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Chair. It's good to see that, you know, our city is growing, population is growing, we're getting, we need more schools. And I understand the residents' concerns about the noise, the traffic. I mean, undoubtedly that those are the issues around any school. Not possibly noise, possibly more so in around a primary school, though. Also, residents raised issues about the ASB. However, from the school's presentation, I understand that the school will open their gates to the local community, and they will be providing some out of hours, out of learning hours, activities for young people. So possibly those young people who were going to commit ASB will be in school doing something constructive. So that's a mitigating factor. It's good to hear that the school is committed to social mobility of their students, and not only that is in their, you know, ethics and moral code, but in their expressed in their aesthetics. That's good to know. So on balance, having read the report and heard both, you know, heard what both sides have to say, I would like to, you know, to approve the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Thank you. Councillor Cusack, and I got Councillor Clark, and I got Councillor Chesterton. Councillor Cusack.
Thank you, Chair. I think I welcome this application, and I welcome the development here. I think good school provision in Salford is something that not only is necessary but should be encouraged, because we are, of course, as you're aware, Chair, a learning city, and these facilities, particularly in areas like this, are crucially important to the development of Salford. I do think that the design is, the external design, on the basis of the elevations we've seen, is a little bit utilitarian. I'd like to see a bit more flair in the design of schools in future, but I don't think that's a sufficient ground to say that that it's not acceptable. I think it's perfectly acceptable, but I do think it could have been a little bit better designed. I think it's well conditioned. I think the planning officers have done a great job in ensuring that that the development sits well within the community and works with the community and is properly controlled and will be properly controlled in the future. I have one small issue with the report, which refers to the local plan examination being expected in November 2021, when in fact we are currently in January 2022, and I think that could maybe have been corrected, but it's a very minor point. I accept that. And given the comments I've made, Chair, I'm very happy to second the proposal that we approve this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Yes, I also felt that the design was a what do you say?
Utilitarian, Chair.
Yeah, I mean that's too big a word for me. I can't spell that. I was more on the bland side, but saying that though, you know, I've seen other educational facilities go through this this panel, and one was a robotics and technology centre, and it didn't look very technological from the outside at all, this building, and so, but anyway, you know, that's yeah, but yeah, I'm with you on that a bit, but yeah, I felt it was a bit bland. But saying that, we did have building schools for the future, and some of those buildings were quite loud and stuff, and but also at the same time they did include quite a bit of render here and there, which caused a future maintenance cost, where this brick will be very proud, strong, old, and it you know, and it'll keep that maintenance cost minimal with the building. So yeah, I'm with you a bit there. Councillor Clark, and I've got Councillor Tristan.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with Phil. I describe it as a 1980s comprehensive, and it could be built a bit more sympathetic. My main issue is with traffic. Is there any plans? Have we got any plans for traffic? Because we all know anybody that lives near a school, and especially that's a drive, that's going to vastly, you know, increase traffic for the residents. And there's no way to turn around there at all. It's one in, one out, isn't it? So what plans is there to help with elite traffic?
Yeah, my understanding was that they're going to actually get the traffic flow in sight, so rather than outside of sight. So, but Miss Corcoran will explain much better to us. Miss Corcoran, over to yourself.
Hi, yes. So if I move the presentation back to the site plan. So I'll just let the presentation catch up your side. So all vehicular traffic would come through here. Just, yeah, it's catching up with me now. And you obviously you'd come in this way, you could drop off in this lay-by here, you circle round, and then you go out here. So the idea is that we, as the sort of local authority, we've asked for additional parking as well, above probably what we'd normally ask, given the location being quite residential. We've asked for additional parking so that we can bring people out from Longshore Drive into the school. So if they do need to drop off their children, they can do so within the site and exit safely. The other thing to note, obviously, is we do have cycle parking, and the hope is that children will be encouraged to cycle to school. We have a dedicated pedestrian cycle access here, which is, as you'll note, the other side from the vehicle parking for safety purposes. And obviously then you've got this desire line to the main school. And obviously then, like I say, you've got the storage parking here as well, conveniently located. And obviously the school would generally provide for local children. So there's the other option is obviously walking as well. There is a travel plan, which has been conditioned as part of the application, that should hopefully try and reduce numbers of parents coming and dropping their children off and picking up. If Steve Ho, the Highways Officer, has any further comments.
Yes,
right, I think I understood most of that. So what we're trying to say is then they're going to go in.
I just had my mic up. To address the, in terms of the traffic,
Mr. Ho,
well, basically, during the pre-app stage, we had like a lengthy conversation with the applicant in terms of like ensuring this is little impact on the local roads. So that's why we kind of requested for initial parking, internal parking, also lay-by to kind of accommodate pick-ups and drop-offs. So, and then also in terms of mitigating potential speeding along Longshore Drive, we also asked for traffic calming features to be included along Longshore Drive to reduce the speed from 30 to 20.
In a minute. Mr. Ho, thank you. Yes. Councillor Clark, I think your question was fully answered for you, good self, was it?
Yeah. Yeah, but we all know what's going to happen, don't we? So I think the traffic and the parking needs to be looked at. And I'm also a bit concerned that the residents on Witch Eaves Crescent, is there a sound barrier at the back of those sports pitches? Because most of it on the other elevations have got trees to sort of cushion it. But Witch Eaves Crescent leads back onto family residences, gardens. I can't see a sound barrier.
No problem. Yeah, you know, this was a former school site, and so those residents would have been very, very versed to living around a bigger high school. I think it was 3 times capacity. This site, the previous school. So these residents would have been very versed about how living around the school. And what surprises me is that, you know, the amount of communication that the applicant's done with the local residents, and they managed to. They've come up with a plan that residents seem to be happy with, and if they weren't, they'd be here. Okay. Quite simply, because people who do live around the school are vocal about it, you know. And like so I am for an indicator for me. I'm pleased to see that. So, but yes, the sound barrier. Let's find out about that. I agree. Ms. Corcoran.
Yes, there is a sound barrier. So on your screen, you will note there are sort of long sort of light blue line, that is actually an acoustic barrier. Sort of hovering around it with my cursor at the moment with the pointer. It runs all the way across the back of the all-weather pitch there. And also, there is also, just for completeness, there's also one to the rear of the mugger as well, which runs down there. Oops, sorry, I'm using my cursor. Down there. And the implementation of these are conditioned.
Yeah, Ms Corcoran, the sound barrier, could you just define the height to us?
It's a 3 metre solid fence, essentially.
Okay.
The specification is in the condition for its implementation. The specification has also been mentioned in that wording as well to ensure that it is what it needs to do in terms of mitigating against sound for those residents to the south and west.
Could you just give us the condition number so Councillor Clark can read it out in the interim?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, just bear with me a second. I have to quickly find it.
Are we defining the colour in that as well, or the? I think it's condition 11, Councillor Clark. Is that okay? I'm going to move forward and I'll come back if I need to. Is that okay, Councillor Clark? Fabulous. Okay, Councillor Tristan, and I've got Councillor Birch.
Thank you. Being slightly facetious, and spotted that the school finishes at 11:55 on Fridays. It wasn't like that in my day. But I'm also very pleased to see the inclusion of bike sheds, because they're very important for practicing your fighting, smoking and kissing techniques. So very crucial to education. I do have a question. Is this a brownfield site? Because on page 52 it says it isn't, but then on page 60 it says that it is.
Let's get
I would say it's not a brownfield site. It was playing fields. So no, in short, it's not a brownfield site. However, as discussed in the principal section of the report, a greenfield site isn't necessarily we can still develop on greenfield sites subject to obviously all the other criteria being met. And then obviously in this case there is established need for the school, which is quite critical to meet the need for the 2023 intake of Year 7 for this particular area. So the simple answer to the question is no, but however there are other factors that need to be taken into account.
Okay, it's just on page 60 it says the development is a brownfield site in the core conurbation critical drainage area, but that's a minor point. Yeah. My other question is to do with the transport assessment and highway safety. This probably isn't particular to this application, but just looking at the numbers, so they have expected arrivals and departures for various classes of vehicles and people, but the two don't balance. So, for example, 242 pedestrians arrive in the morning, and then 140 leave in the afternoon. Where do the 100 people go? And there's a similar discrepancy in vehicles, which it's much smaller. And this is again a fairly minor point, but it just seems odd that these numbers don't balance at all in their modelling. But it also does affect the size of the car park. So the car park is 88 bays, but according to the transport assessment, there's only about 12 vehicles on site during the day. So do we need a car park of 88 bays if we're expecting much fewer vehicles? And could some of that car park be used as green space instead?
Let's make sure those numbers are robust. Is that okay? And let's get an explanation about them. Mr. Ho, who's our highways guy. Mr. Ho,
hi.
Is that okay?
In regards to you say there's discrepancies, but let me explain. In the morning, the main reason why with typical high schools you have higher trips in the morning is to do with potentially a lot of parents dropping off their children on their way to school, on the way to work. So hence you got higher numbers in the morning. And in terms of arrivals, most teachers probably do arrive before the students start arriving. So bulk of the teachers would have arrived on site, and they obviously you got a couple overlapping into the arrival period of 8 to 9, and then during the PM peak, again, like I say, parents are dropping their children off, and then during the between 5 and 4 o'clock, 3 and 4 o'clock, most of these parents are probably still at work, so the students either be walking home or taking public transport. So hence there's the significant lower number in the evening compared to the morning. Is that enough to address that point?
So basically the arrivals and departures that aren't listed are outside of the 2 periods that we've got in the report. That makes perfect sense. In some respects, it would be useful to have the numbers outside of those 2 intervals as well, just so we have a more complete picture of all of the arrivals.
Well, if you're talking about core peak hours, what I'm saying is because the school normally, basically close between like 3 and 4 o'clock, and so majority of the students would be taking public transport, walking, cycling, so they're not requiring their parents to pick them up from the school. So hence the numbers are lower. But in terms of teachers leaving the school, it would be after the 4 o'clock. And then in terms of testing the capacity of the local highway network, normally from 4:30 to 5 o'clock. Again, in terms of the traffic generation from this school, it'd be very, very, very low. So hence that's why it wasn't tested for the core hours of the network.
We tend to get the worst case scenario shown to us, which yeah. So is that okay, Councillor?
Okay.
Are we okay to move forward? Councillor Birch.
Thank you, Chair. I still stand by the decision to move the approval. Just to clarify, as a mother and talking to other mothers, the current design of some of the schools, the design of toilets is a little surprising. One, they don't have doors at all. To go into the toilets themselves, there are no doors, like big doors. Obviously, cubicles have doors. And 2, boys and girls' toilets are right next to each other and without doors. I do not get the logic, don't understand why that would be done, but I was given a couple of explanations. So I'm just wondering whether it would make sense to at least situate them in opposite sides of the building on the same floor if need be. Can we have clarification on that? If that is a planning matter, I know with residential properties we do have a look at the internal plans. So it just a question of the mother council. Thank you.
It's way out of our scope as a planning authority. It's more with building regulations, and also down to where the applicant would like services to be, as you might say. But I'm sure the applicants have heard you. So, Mr. Greenall, do you have a quick answer? I know it's not a material consideration. So. That's okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Is that okay, Councillor Birch? I can't, yeah, fabulous. Okay. Okay, members, it's been moved and seconded. Oh, another thing. My understanding is that with the DFT, now, sorry, the DFE, if they are funding a school, which in this case I believe the Department for Education is funding this, is that they no longer want to see vendor work, you see. They don't, so they are encouraging more substantial building materials like brick. So that's coming from the department who are the source of the funding. So I just thought I'd give you that little bit of information. Now you have got the planning balance sheet in front of you, and it's been moved and seconded for approval. I don't believe we've changed any of the conditions, etc. Asked for any added. And so, Councillor Tresidder, I believe that section of the report, that's why I paused after you spoke to come back, I believe that section of the report about it being a brownfield site was that the previous sections of the site would have been considered to be brownfield, but we gave permission for that to be housing some weeks ago, and now this area was the old playing fields. So I believe that, I think the report's correct. So, but I'm not going to tell you that you haven't read the report correctly. Is that okay? I wouldn't dare do that. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded for approval. All in favour, please show. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, the application has been approved. Thank you so much for your attendance. All the best. See you, Bill. Thank you. Okay, moving right on, members, to our last application this morning, item 5D. It's pages 73 to 112, and it's on your amendment sheet 7 to 8. Miss Stewart, Councillor Kuska, welcome. We were just about to start the last application, and we haven't done anything, so please take your seat wherever you're going to take. It's up to you. Great. Okay, Miss Stewart, can I hear you good self?
Yes, hello, Chair.
Could you go forward a slide and back a slide? Fabulous. I'll just give Councillor McCusker 20 seconds to unload his bag. Members, while that is doing that, I'll remind you that, that the planning balance sheet for this application is in your email from Miss Edwards yesterday. And Miss Edwards, Councillor McCusker is present now, so I believe there's 8 members in the room. Is that correct? Fabulous. And Councillor McCusker now has the technology out and switched on. Miss Stewart, over to you good self. You have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So this application relates to the site of Raleigh Quays and seeks permission for the demolition of the existing buildings and the erection of a 12-storey office building, 16-storey hotel building, together with associated ancillary facilities, including servicing, means of access, landscaping and public realm. The slide shows the application site outlined in red. It's bounded to the north by Stanley Street. To the west is Riverside House with Irwell Street beyond. To the south is the River Irwell, and to the east is an area of public realm leading further along Stanley Street to New Bailey Street. Riverside House is locally listed. There are a number of other listed structures within the vicinity which are highlighted black on this slide. So this slide puts the application site outlined red in context with the Salford Central Master Plan. The site itself doesn't form part of the Master Plan area, but it does sit directly adjacent to Zone B, which is known as the New Bailey Commercial Quarter. So you can see the plots are labelled on this slide. Further west, on the opposite side of Irwell Street, is Zone A of the Master Plan area as well, which comprises of residential blocks, as well as a hotel, multi-storey car park and an office block that's under construction at plot A3. Just to put things into a little bit more context, here is an aerial photo. So you can see the existing application site here. Riverside House is here. To the north are the Zone B plots, with the exception of plot B7, which is in this location currently under construction. And here on the opposite side of Irwell Street are the Zone A plots. So these site photos show the existing Raleigh Quays buildings, which are likely to be demolished, with the exception of some of the existing basement walls, which are to be retained and incorporated into the proposed development. And these are the buildings within zones A and B of the master plan area that the development will be seen in context with. As can be seen from this slide, the buildings within the vicinity are all of differing but high quality design. Here is the proposed site plan, which indicates the footprint of the proposed development, with the hotel building here, the office building here, and the link area between the two buildings here. No car parking is proposed as part of the development. Vehicular access will be provided via Stanley Street in this direction, and servicing of the building would take place at ground floor level here. Here we have the proposed basement plan, which would accommodate back of house areas, including refuse, changing areas, maintenance and plant areas. In addition, it will provide cycle storage for 184 cycle spaces, as well as staff rooms and back office areas. The basement level would sit in from the river wall, and controlled access to this area will be provided by a stepped access to the southeast corner of the building, shown here, with the riverside sitting at the basement level of the building. The ground floor level of the office building, shown here, and would extend over the riverside area, sitting directly adjacent to the river edge. The hotel building would be set back from the external edge of the river, with its terrace area here sitting directly adjacent and extending over the basement area. Internally at ground floor, the hotel building will be double height with a mezzanine above the core areas only, and will provide a reception area, lounge, flexible workstations, bar, restaurant and internal and external seating areas, as well as some back of house facilities. The office at ground floor will provide a reception area, lobby, lounge, a riverside studio and flexible workspace, as well as back of house facilities, a service bay for deliveries and refuse, and some small mezzanine areas. Office space will be provided from first floor level, and within the hotel, the first floor will provide flexible meeting rooms, a function room, gym, reception and breakout areas, as well as some further back of house areas, with hotel rooms provided from second floor level, as can be seen on the typical upper floor plan shown on this slide. At roof level, shared and dedicated office outdoor terraces will be provided to the southern side of the building. The remainder of the roof would largely accommodate plant with an area for solar panels on top of the projecting lift and stair core. In terms of the hotel, at roof level, a double height bar and restaurant with internal seating will be provided to the southern part of the building, and outdoor terraces will be provided to the east and western sides of the building. The hotel bar and restaurant, which is this area here, together with the back of house kitchen areas, will be covered with plant above and an area for solar panels to the southern part of the building here. Here is a computer generated image of the development with the office building in the foreground and the hotel beyond. The image shows the building elevations and glazing extending upwards at roof level of the office building to form a double height parapet around the roof terrace and plant area, as well as stone archways to the bottom that would extend up from basement level to emulate the architecture of Riverside House and reflecting its design and materials. Here is another computer generated image from the opposite side of the hotel, with the hotel in the foreground. And as with the office building, the hotel elevations would also extend upwards around the roof level, but this time with glazed arches forming a parapet around the external areas. Our final computer generated image showing the steps down to the riverside, which is here. The ground floor external terrace is shown here. And this area would include a pedestrian access along the terrace through the link area here, popping out on the north elevation onto Stanley Street, as is shown here in the inset image. The buildings largely fill the plot, however there are some external amenity areas proposed, including terrace areas and roof gardens, which are highlighted on this plan, as well as hard and soft landscaping. Final landscaping details are to be secured by the recommended condition. This slide shows a level of river access around the existing buildings. So whilst there is currently no physical barrier, the area of the walkway highlighted red on the plan, which is at the south of Riverside House and sits immediately adjacent to the application site, has already been stopped up. The area coloured pink with blue dots adjacent to the river is the area which would be impacted by the proposed development. As is set out in the panel report, the current riverside access adjacent to the Raleigh Keys building is via steps and therefore not fully accessible. Once down by the riverside, the area doesn't provide a through route in either direction. I've got some photos here showing the riverside area looking towards the former Mark Addy pub, which is blocked up here, and I don't know if you can quite make out, there's a hole in the fence there, and this picture is sort of looking through that hole towards the Mark Addy pub. And then a couple of photos looking in the opposite direction, so from the area adjacent to the Reliqueys building towards the Irwell Street Bridge. This is the retaining wall adjacent to Riverside House, so the area that is already stopped up as was shown on that plan earlier. And the second photo on the right hand side is on the opposite side of the River Irwell Bridge, adjacent to the Zone A developments within the master plan area. So we've got the Travel Lodge here. We now have just a couple of short videos to play just to further demonstrate the walking experience of the site. Mr. Williams, if you are okay to share those videos, please. So this is from the Reliqueys building. So this is walking down between the building and the river, down the access steps. So the area is publicly accessible. It's not the best route down the steps. So to the riverside now, over towards the Mark Addy Public House. Turning back around, heading in the opposite direction. So heading towards Irwell Street and the Irwell Street Bridge. Just heading up, we can just see the retaining wall there adjacent to Riverside House, and that takes us to the area which is stopped up but no physical barrier. So we've walked as far down as safe to do so. As you can see, it's currently very overgrown, narrow, with no scope for widening due to the high retaining wall located immediately to the rear. And this is coming from the opposite direction, so from the Zone A developments, showing the route from the opposite side. This one now is showing the new pedestrian and cycling route along Stanley Street, which is being established through the development of the wider master plan area. So Reliqueys is just to the left, and we've got the other Zone B plots on the right hand side, heading towards Irwell Street with the Zone A plots, we can just see further down. So this is Irwell Street with a hotel, Travelodge Hotel beyond. Okay, thank you, Mr. Williams.
Stuart, are you speaking?
I'm just waiting for the presentation to catch up with me.
No, thank you. So it's okay. Just small silences always trigger the mind that technology's failed. So please carry on.
Yeah, no problem. So whilst riverside access would still be provided by the steps located to the southeast of the site, this area is proposed to be controlled by the applicants for maintenance purposes only. However, an alternative route is proposed at ground floor level, which would run along the external terrace, as can be seen here, through the building, out onto Stanley Street. The route shown on this plan, the finer details are indicative because these are to be secured through the Section 106 agreement. So that will cover things like the exact width, surfacing, signage, and also the opening hours, which is proposed to be accessible from dawn till dusk. As set out in the panel report, planning policies acknowledge that there are certain locations where the Irwell City Park walking and cycling route would need to come away from the river and follow a parallel route, which is the case here. This plan shows the various routes within the area. I will show a close-up plan shortly, but here we can see the application site outlined in purple, and the green dashed line is the Irwell Park route, which comes up away from the river here, adjacent to the Zone A developments, and it comes along Stanley Street and rejoins the river just on the opposite side of New Bailey Street. Also further up, it does come away from the river, sort of over towards the Greengate area. So just taking a closer look at that plan, again the application site outlined in purple, with the River Park route coming up to the western side of the Zone A developments, along Stanley Street, past the application site and the former Markaddy Public House, and rejoining on the opposite side of New Bailey Street. So as set out in the panel report, the development framework is clear that the pedestrian route within this area would not run along the riverside. The new route along Stanley Street has instead been provided as part of the master plan developments, which is now a very well established route and will not be impacted by the proposed development. But the important thing to note is that there will still be a route around the building, albeit it will be different to what is currently in place. So to conclude, the application site sits within an area which has seen significant transformation over recent years in light of the development of the Salford Central Master Plan area. The use is appropriate in this location and the development is considered to be of high quality design, which would add to the ongoing regeneration of the area. It would represent a sustainable form of development that would not compromise the aims and objectives of the relevant policies within the adopted Unity Development Plan, the draft local plan and the National Planning Policy Framework. The application is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the conditions set down in the report and the completion of the Section 106 agreement to secure the public realm contribution and the alternative pedestrian route. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much. Okay, I do believe there are a number of objectors in the room. I have a Gloria Gaffney, a Morag Rose and a Don Lee. Is that correct? There are all three people here. Are you all wishing to speak? Fabulous. I said 10 minutes and divide by 3, and if you do that, you get 3 minutes 20. But should we say 3 minutes 30 each? It's a bit more. So, who's going first? Okay. Miss Rose, please come forward. Thank you so much. Yes, of course. When you sat down, I believe that's to be the protocol in the building. So, okay.
Thank you.
No problem, Miss Rose. Whenever you're ready to speak, over to yourself. If you could just give us where you're from or where you reside or what you represent, it just helps with context for the members of the panel.
Of course. So, hello, thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm Dr. Morag Rose. I've lived in Manchester over 20 years. I'm a walking artist, tour guide and lecturer. My research is all about access, equality, walking and loving the cities around Greater Manchester. I do not object to this application, but I'm urging you to make a vital amendment and add a condition that means there is no required stopping up order. Walking and cycling have many well-documented health, well-being and environmental benefits. I don't have time to go into them, but I'm happy to provide evidence if you need it. Now's the time to promote, not limit, active travel, and many key Salford Council policies, as you know, support this excellent principle. Beyond the utilitarian, walking and cycling bring joy and enable us to explore and connect to our local environment. My own research and lived experience demonstrates how the COVID-19 pandemic made local walking and public space more precious and valuable than ever. I've organised hundreds of community walks. The River Irwell is an integral part of Salford and Manchester's heritage, our precious natural and industrial history. Closing a section of path removes the potential for a truly green and blue link from our city to Salford Quays, possibly beyond. Imagine how wonderful that potential is. But the stopping up order is about more than simply our ability to walk and cycle along the river. It's about gentrification, it's about social cleansing, and it's about the theft of public lands for private profit. The River Irwell, our Irwell, should be for everyone, and please do not allow it to be annexed. Salford deserves better. And let's be frank, the security issues largely relate to homeless people. Enclosure is not a compassionate or appropriate response to homelessness. Salford is better than this. If you, like so many, were repulsed by anti-homeless spikes and callously hostile architecture, you must do the decent, humane thing and require an amendment to remove the need for the stopping up order. Please save our public access. I know I speak for many today including diverse local residents. Here's a statement from one of them, Joseph, who asked me to read on his behalf due to time limits. Forgive me looking at my phone. Today, I speak on behalf of residents of Blackfriars and Trinity. The 300-year-old Riverside Walk is a place to drink hot chocolate in early winter, to read books and eat ice cream in the summer. To my partner, it's one of the few places she can go fishing and access the River Irwell. While the area is clearly in need of some investment and protection and improved disabled access, we don't do that by removing access for everyone outside of dawn till dusk. This is a place for the public. That means residents, visitors, and anybody else who wants it. This part of Salford is at risk of only being useful as a place to live, so we walk into Manchester for nice shops, restaurant, and things to do. At the very least, we are asking that you respect this right away, but beyond this, I ask that you set some clear intentions for this area instead of selling public spaces and developing us into oblivion. I'm delighted to be protected and represented at this stage by Gloria, Don and Morag. With a 100% objection rate and 118 objections, I'm not alone. And I ask today that the Council protect us. Do not let the application go through unamended. Protect us, protect your constituents. Thank you. So that was Joseph. And I say, in summary, please, save the Irwell for everyone and amend the application to protect the right of way. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. Thank you so much. We just have to clean the gentleman's just going to clean the table before the next speaker. Is that okay? Who's going next? Is it Miss Gaffney or Mr. Lee? Miss Gaffney. No problem. I'm not a stickler for time, but Miss Gaffney, Dr. Rose, she didn't use 10 seconds of her time, so you're going to get 3 minutes and 40. Is that okay? So it's a 10-minute section for you. So
there's another speaker.
I'm aware of that, and Mr. Lee will get his 3 minutes and 30, and if you leave any left, he'll get the extra. Is that okay?
Well,
Miss Gaffney, if you'd be so kind as to you reside or who you represent, it just helps with context from the members of the panel, that's all. Is that okay?
Yes, my comments are by way of a statement. I'm a footpath officer, an environment officer for the Greater Manchester Pedestrians Association.
Thank you.
And I'd like to start now. The whole ethos of a riverside walk should be for the enjoyment of quiet paths away from traffic, noise and pollution. However, with its additional history of at least 300 years plus, the River Irwell towpath is unique, and that's why it's so important. Moreover, today, due to the proximity of nearby public transport, including Salford Railway Station, the Irwell towpath has added value for excellent walking routes downriver, all the way to Salford Quays and beyond, to Warrington New Quay. To take away the Raleigh Quays portion of Riverside, as the planning application in its present form indicates, reduces the overall walk effectiveness, and to this, the public realm alternative, with the possible restrictions of use of dawn till dusk curfew in the hotel vicinity, that's on page 88, as well as the sufferance path status of Stanley Street when the public are getting a raw deal and a poor exchange. The current access to the riverside needs to be maintained as a right of way, not only to guarantee the public's rights to walk along the riverside, but to enjoy the river environment in all seasons. The Association wants these public routes to be added to the Council's definitive rights of way map so that future generations may continue to enjoy them as of right. We certainly don't want them closed off and gated for private use and commercial gain. I believe it's a disgrace to even consider closing a riverside route, especially like the Irwell, and we all know about the history of the Irwell. The alternative offered offers no river views, and it's between high buildings and within the presence of an assortment of delivery vehicles, goods, taxis, refuse, and so on. Would this be imposed, for instance, on Londoners and the River Thames, or perhaps the Dee in Chester? No, I don't think so. Of course not, I believe. The Pedestrians Association is not against the development in principle, and I want to make this very clear. All we are asking for is a rider to be added to the planning consent, that the public right-of-way is maintained along the old towpath and its links to Stanley Street, which is very important. In conclusion, I would like to just say this closure is against all the government's policies to encourage walking. It's against Salford's own blue UDP policy, giving and promoting access to waterside areas. And it would be a disgrace to allow this area, which is not needed by the developer, to be mothballed and to stagnate. I noticed on the film review which was shown, it was quite dark, but it showed that it didn't show the wide staggered steps with at least 2 landings wide and handrails on them. It didn't show the coverage of the seats and the waste receptacles, which are used and emptied regularly. And I'll just go back to say that inclusion, there is need for some give and take here, and to address the pedestrian concerns, and not to let this footpath area be stopped up. I thank you very much, and I don't mind answering some questions. We should be all encouraging walking and not putting off routes willy-nilly.
Thank you, Ms Gaffney. Thank you so much. I'll let you conclude. I didn't decide to try and draw your time. I wanted to listen to what you had to say. Thank you so much. If you could take a seat back at the gold chairs, I'd be so grateful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Lee, we just need to clean the table. Gemma does a great job, and everything's safe for it, and then we're on again. Thanks, Gemma. Mr Lee, at the risk of repeating myself, if you would be so kind to introduce yourself, if you're a local resident or you represent the body, we're most grateful. It just helps with context of the members. Then after that, it's your 3.5 minutes. Is that okay?
Yes. Yes, indeed. Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everybody else. I'm speaking as a personal individual and objective to the stopping up order, which is running parallel to this. I've had some experience of footpath preservation in the last 50-odd years, but I am speaking as an individual and not a member of any organisation today. There's an undercurrent here, people, about the privatisation of public space. Now, there's a footpath, a public right-of-way, which goes alongside the river, as you know, and I've never heard, in over 50 years dealing with footpaths and rights-of-way in a city like this, of taking away a riverside route. People and councils all over the country are trying to create these where there aren't any at the moment. I mean, this wouldn't happen in London, I can tell you, because everybody else, they want to enhance the riverside and allow and permit and create public access, not take it away. This actually is an undercurrent here in the, as I say, the privatisation of public space. Now, I'm not against the development as such. It can go ahead. All that it really needs, as Gloria Gaffney mentioned, is a condition, extra condition, to say that the public right-of-way along the riverside will be protected and enhanced in the future. Nothing is going to happen to this footpath except it will be taken in and gated off and used for private purposes. Now that is wrong. At the moment, the public can freely use this almost like a promenade at the time. There is one snag here, and if you bear with me, what it is, if you, I've got the papers here, and it's on page 91. You've already seen the photograph on the video there, but it shows what purports to be the end of the footpath. And it can't go any further. Well, believe you me, if you go on site, there is a narrow, much narrower way, 1 yard wide, which isn't wide enough and it we can't leave it over made bigger, but you can get through. And the reason it's overgrown at the moment is because further along, downriver, there's the problems of continuing development, so you can't get in at the moment, but in due course that will be all opened up. And what's needed here is it will be a popular way when it's done up properly, if we're allowed to do it. The alternative is absolute rubbish, quite frankly. It's along an area which is going to be public realm. And what does that mean? It means they can do what they like with it. And they can have hours on it. I think it's mentioned dawn to dusk and things like this. And the Stanley Street alternative, well, that's a street. No views, no nothing, no riverside. This Riverside Park, I mean, it's crazy to have it going by the street when there's an open river, the public right of way. I think I'll probably have my 3 minutes, Chairman.
Hey, you've got 30 seconds left, Mr. Lee. Is that okay?
All right, well, I'll wind up now. I could say a lot more, but I'm hopeful that we can have a rider here, and then we can all be very happy. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you ever so much, Mr. Lee. Thank you. Okay, that's the end from the objectives section. I'm going to open up to the applicants and applicants' agents. I have a Miss Dixon. Miss Dixon, Gemma's just wiping it out. Thank you, Gemma. Miss Dixon, as I read out at the beginning, it's 10 minutes for both sides, but I did give an extra 10 seconds to each speaker, so it's 10 minutes and 30. So you have 10 minutes and 30. You have to run a fair and equal hearing for all sides. So whenever you're ready, over to you, good self.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today. My name is Kaylee Dixon, Associate Director at DPP, and I'm speaking on behalf of the applicant for the Raleigh Quay scheme, Legal and General Investment Management. If the case officer could just put the CGI on the screen, just for the context, that would be really helpful as well.
You can make that happen. Miss Stewart.
So as you've seen through the officer's presentation, the application site currently accommodates the Raleigh Quays office building, which will be occupied by HMRC until the end of 2022, when they'll move to their new building at plot B2, B3 New Bailey. The proposed developments for a 12-storey office block and a 16-storey hotel block linked at ground floor and basement level. The development's been designed to the highest architectural and sustainable standards as a long-term investment for Legal & General, and it further increases Legal & General's commitment to Salford. Our client acknowledges that there's been significant representation received to the application, particularly in respect of the removal of public access at the lower riverfront level over a short distance. To clarify, the land is in the ownership of our client, but the current area of public access along the river was granted public access by the historic planning application for the existing Raleigh Quays buildings on the site. The proposal has been designed and submitted in full accordance with the adopted UDP policies and also the Salford Central Development Framework, which acknowledges that although there's an overarching policy initiative to improve riverside accessibility, at this part of the route, the adopted policy actually shows the route following the line of Stanley Street due to challenges with site levels, etc., as demonstrated in the presentation earlier. Our client has actively engaged with some of the objectors from local walking groups and local residents, and some of which are here today. And they have also explored options to retain public accessibility at river level, but as you've seen in the presentation, there are significant challenges. For example, the area under the bridge can't be widened due to the high-level retaining wall, and even if it was safe to pass this section of path, the path at river level, it's not really considered to be a desirable and safe route to divert pedestrians along. And this is also supported by the findings of the crime impact statement submitted with the planning application as well. So it's therefore proposed to retain the riverside as maintenance access only. Our client is, however, fully supportive of improving accessibility of the site for all and is happy to provide an alternative permissive walking route from Stanley Street, which would go through the hotel entrance, along the Upper River Terrace and then back onto Stanley Street. And we feel that this will be a much safer and accessible route for all pedestrians and will still allow moments of pause on the terrace as well to take in river views. In terms of further benefits of the proposal, there are many, but to summarise some of the key benefits, the development will see the erection of a high-quality office space in line with the surrounding area and will provide additional office space within one of the most popular locations for offices in the city. Alongside this, the proposed hotel use will be supported by the surrounding commercial uses and is ideally located for tourism and leisure users. The construction phase of the proposal has the potential to create approximately 525 full-time equivalent construction jobs, as well as up to 17.5 million generated through local spending during the construction phase through the supply chain. There'll also be significant employment opportunities during the operational stage, with the social and local economic value generated approximately 19 million in the first year and circa 186 million over 10 years of occupation. The proposal promotes sustainable transport methods, ease of access for all users and discouragement of car use. Overall, the New Bailey development is a secure, pedestrian-focused, level access landscape. Vehicle access is restricted to service and authorised vehicles only. And at basement level, the building will provide extensive bicycle parking space for the office and hotel use with dedicated changing facilities. The development will provide a high-quality, sustainable building targeted for BREEAM Excellent and a NARES 5.5-star rating. That will feature striking design emulating the adjacent Riverside House at ground level, while the landscape concept builds upon the design principles of the scheme and the site's unique location as a gateway site between Salford and Manchester along the River Irwell. We also feel it will complement the public realm already implemented as part of the New Bailey development. In summary, the proposed office and hotel will complement the wider Salford Central Master Plan, which will bring wider benefits to the area, providing continued opportunity for inward investment, facilitating the provision of local jobs, riverside regeneration and aiding social, economic and physical regeneration. The proposed development is an exciting opportunity to regenerate this prominent gateway location on the river and bring this site up to the same high standards as the rest of the Salford Central Master Plan area. The unique way in which the hotel and offices link at ground floor, merging these two worlds, will create an exceptional work environment which occupiers now demand and will significantly strengthen the New Bailey commercial area. The proposed development contributes to all three dimensions of sustainable development as outlined in the NPPF. Furthermore, the development is considered to be acceptable to plan and balance when assessed against local and national policy and has an officer's recommendation for approval. Therefore, I'd respectfully ask members of the planning committee to vote in favour of the officer recommendation and approve an application.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dixon. Thank you so much. Okay, members, over to yourself. Anyone wishing to speak? Councillor Birch? Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you, Chair. For those of us who know where the area is, and I believe everyone here does, and as we heard from the speakers today, the area is in need of renovation and regeneration. So, in principle, I do welcome the development of the area. And of course, job creation, construction, job creation, that's just music to everybody's ears. So that's brilliant, that's great to hear. However, having listened to the objectives, I can't help but agree with the overarching idea that the river belongs to the city. It was there before all of us were here, and it will be there hopefully, for hundreds of years. And any kind of restriction is to the river is unacceptable. I do not accept providing any pathways in lieu of partial restrictions. I don't accept that at all. And we have heard passionate speeches from the speakers. The words were used: social cleansing, gentrification, privatization of public space, and I can't help but agree that that's what it looks like. And we, as a councillor in Ordsall, we have got Ordsall Estate and Salford Quays. Obviously, I don't need to, to explain that they are quite extreme, opposites economically. So we are removing, as we are speaking now, we are removing that barrier that was along Trafford Road, dividing two communities, and the mindset has been, the residents tell me for decades, this is them, this is us. So we have removed this green wall, the bushes, the hedges that was there to make sure that the community is united. And here we're talking about creating actually a divide between those who will be standing outside looking in, by restricting access to the river. So in principle, I welcome the development, but any restriction to access, to the river access, I think it's unacceptable. It's against what our council stands for. It is divisive, and in spite of all the construction jobs that will be created and the aesthetical improvement of the area, I still strongly disagree with any restrictions to the asset of the river that belongs to the city. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Birch. Councillor Hamilton?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I concur with Councillor Birch on quite a few of the points. Just a few things for me. I'm happy for it to go ahead, similar to Councillor Birch, with condition. I'm not closing off the path to Stanley Road. I think I could speak about Blackfriars Trinity residents. They've had enough to put up with. And we've got this recent Trinity and Islington modal filters. It's about cycling, it's about walking. It's very contradictory, this for my residents. So happy with the application, but I want the condition on.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, on that condition, on what we've been asked today, it's not within our remit as a planning authority. It doesn't sit within the process of our decision making today. I will bring Ms. in to explain that to you. And if so, we've got Ms. Umbam out there, our legal representative too, who will explain that to you. That what you're being asked to do, it will put the planning panel in an ultra vires position, and I will not willing to allow that to happen. So, Ms. Stewart, over to your good self.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, you are correct. If we would look to put a condition on the application to keep that area open, we are duplicating other regimes. In terms of this application, members are not deciding whether or not to stop up the area. The stopping up process is a separate application process. Members are, however, being asked to consider the planning elements of the scheme, so that does include the formation of the alternative route as well as access to and around the building, but the highways aspect in terms of the physical stopping up will be decided through a separate process where people can make representations and concerns on that. And as is set out in the report, and as we've mentioned, the important thing to note here and what is set out in policy is that it was never intended that the Riverside route would continue in this location because of various constraints and concerns with the area. And actually what we are getting is better in that it accords with policy, but also gives us a Riverside walkway which extends along the terrace, albeit in a different format to what is there at the moment, but it does provide that link round and the route through the building back onto Stanley Street.
I hear what you say, Councillor Hamilton, but I can't steer in an ultra-virus direction. It would be a miss as the chair of any planning authority. Is that okay? Is it okay if I move forward?
Yeah.
I've got Councillor McCusker, I've got Councillor Cusack, and I've got Councillor President.
Yeah, firstly, this is impassable at the moment, you know. It's impassable unless you're into dangerous sports to go through that. And so I think what happened here isn't something taken away, but as the officer just said, it's about improvement. It gives better access to the riverfront than the existing position. And I don't understand some of the comments made about this being gentrification. Basically, we're replacing a rather scruffy HMRC building with a hotel and office block, which will greatly improve the area. And I can't see who it's displacing in terms of the comments raised. So I do welcome this. I note that within the report, the Ramblers Association have confirmed they haven't any objections to the proposal to use the Stanley Street route for the Salford Trail and don't object to the closure of the lower Riverside path. And they welcome the idea of the junction between the office block and the hotel that will be open during most of the day to allow the alternative route to Stanley Street and the river. And I think that kind of that reflects what the Ramblers Association is saying is that it reflects my views as well. So I'd like to move, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McCusker. Councillor Cusack.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor McCusker, as he often does, has almost taken the words out of my mouth. I think this is a really good application and proposed development in principle. I am conflicted slightly about the river frontage in that I believe that local authorities, not just Salford, but local authorities across the country, and particularly in the north, should be thinking about enhancing their river frontages rather than preventing access to them. I accept fully, though, that the access issue is not down to this planning application and is not down to this committee. I think, therefore, in principle, I really support this application. I caveat that with I regret that it's not doing what I would like to see in terms of enhancing the riverfront, but I understand the reasons for that. And therefore, Chair, on balance, I would like to second Councillor McCusker's proposal to accept the application.
Thank you, Councillor Cusack. Councillor President.
Again, similar to Councillor Cusack, I think my feelings upon reading this were one of almost overwhelming regret and also some irritation as well. I think at a time when we had a master plan for a whole area, we seem to have written off the possibility of having a continuous riverside walkway from Salford Quays to the city centre, and we now consider it to be there to be no scope for widening. I really don't see how that was beyond our technical limitations to widen a path just to go under a bridge. It's a very small stretch. At the same time, a lot of the damage has already been done. The Slate Yard has no riverside walk path. The Premier Inn is built right up to the river's edge. Riverside House has a stopping up order on it already. It just seems as though we've missed that opportunity altogether, and I think that's a real shame. Where the irritation comes in is that we seem to be tying ourselves in knots now to justify what, in retrospect, might look like a bad decision or a missed opportunity. So we talk about how Stanley Street was always the intended pedestrian route and that we were never going to go along the riverside. But I'm looking at the extract from figure 17 on page 90, which has the riverside labelled as an other connecting route. So there is supposed to be a riverside path. And we just seem to be glossing over that and ignoring it altogether. So it just, the whole thing feels very much as though we've made a bit of a mistake, but the mistake's already been made. And now we're trying to make a silk purse out of a sound's ear in some respects. It beggars belief that our permitted route is going through the lobby of a hotel. I'm assuming I'm not going to be permitted to ride a bicycle through there. But yeah, I mean, the actual development itself isn't my major concern. My major concern is more historical, that we've lost that opportunity. And I think that's very, very sad at a time when we could have taken that chance while we had the opportunity with the master plan.
I can only imagine how many moons ago that was. I imagine it was. There's a reason why there's a huge retaining wall down there, and the building before Valley Keys was abutted right against the river as well, because the river really necks there. It really picks up speed, and the pub down there is called the Mark Addy for another reason, because that genuine chap, he used to jump in the river and save people from drowning. Because that section of river there was really narrow, and it gets really fast, and it rises really quick. That's why the Mark Addy's in such a sad state now. And so, probably, I don't think we should take responsibility for that. I think back in the past, when the previous building set was there, that was it. And Valley Keys possibly could have been offering false hope for that corridor there. I mean, if you look right the other side on the Manchester side, there's a huge retaining wall up there too. And it gets really fast, really flooding. You only have to recollect when there is a small amount of water that falls only up the catchment, and it runs right off quick, and people get down there over that footbridge between Spinningfields and our side of the river, and they're constantly taking videos of it and posting it of how quickly that water rises and how fast it goes. Anyway, even at the Pump House Museum, or now called the People's History Museum, is there as well. That is a retaining wall for a reason, and yes, that does have an access on that. And yeah, and it is regrettable. I think we should regret for past generations, but not for our generation. I think we're solving the symptoms of it. Unfortunately, Valley Court was offering false hope there. And when you actually think what actually happened there is that Stanley Street was cut off by the Valley Court's development that is currently there for one purpose and one purpose only, is that it's a HMRC secure building. They wanted to stop up the access through Stanley Street. So this City Council worked really hard, right, with HMRC to open up Stanley Street. So we've got this extra new route, which is much safer and it's much more accessible. And you can actually cycle through it, because you would never be able to have cycled down the river, because the bridge for the retaining wall and the servicing lift is only 1 yard wide, as you heard from Mr. Lee. So actually this City Council's gone out of its way to make an access across that, along that river. And like, I've only represented the area for 15 years, from Greengate all the way to Salford Quays. And believe me, the reason why I'm starting to go bald is as I've fought off developers who put gates on that river frontage illegally, and I've taken them off to make sure we've got the access along that river. There's a real passion from just me as an urban explorer who runs around loving this area. This, unfortunately, is very regrettable, but it makes me sad today, but it wasn't our decision. It was done years and years ago, and the City Council, as I say, has gone out of its way to make that extra route round the back of Raleigh Court, when the HMRC didn't want to have that open, because that is a secure building at HMRC. So we have a new dawn. What I would like, though, is that this dawn to dusk, I really would appreciate members delegating that to the chair to go and have a look at that timing of that and how that is actually going to work, and this new route through the actual hotel. I don't think anyone would ever want to cycle for it, given that cyclists tend to get through the most easy, accessible, straight route, which would be Stanley Street, and that was the whole point. But I get your point, I really do. So, Councillor Clark, over to your good self. Sorry, I'm just getting on my high horse. My passion too, I can assure you. So.
Yeah, I agree with Tanya and Jane. It's very disappointing that we can't utilise that river as an asset instead of closing it off. Just because something has been allowed to become impassable doesn't mean it can't be passable. You know, it's a lost opportunity, and I really don't understand it. Yet again, we had another grim building to another grim part of Salford, and it's just wrong. I don't understand why we've got it so wrong. I grew up, obviously in Birmingham in the 80s, where we had miles of canal that you couldn't access. You couldn't use them, and the City Council decided to open them all up and use them as an asset, and it's fantastic. You can walk across the city next to the canals and never see a car. And here, all we're doing is creating a giant concrete maze, and it's terrible. and we should be improving the life chances of people to be able to walk next to a river, experience the sky, but we're closing them in, and it's just depressing, honestly.
Yeah, the plan with the river is very well known in this city. We want it 8 metres wide. We've been given a legacy issue. When we say we, I hope you mean humanity has failed to get that river more accessible, because I honestly, I cannot take responsibility at all for my generation closing that river, because we didn't. And also there's that physical thing there as well. So I hear what you said. Well, I don't agree with you about the built environment stuff as usual, Councillor Clark. So, okay, members, it's been moved and seconded for approval. Could I ask that you delegate the materials condition, the 106 condition, and that the dawn to dusk timing condition to the relevant senior officer in consultation with the chair? I'd be very grateful. That'd be okay. Okay, it's been moved and seconded for approval. All in favour of that, please show. Anyone against? Any abstentions? Ladies and gentlemen, the application has been approved. Thank you so much for your attendance. Okay, members, would you be happy to note the delegated authority applications? Item 6. Oh, Ms. Gaffney, it's a public meeting. You can come and go as freely as you want. All I asked is I'm speaking freely. Yes. Thank you for coming today. There's a real passion in this room, and you can see that. And we hear you loud and clear. But you know, yeah. And I'm not here to have a go at other authorities, but if you look at the Earl City Park planning policy, there's one local authority out of the 3 that is determined to keep on trying to apply it. Although it might not have been in this section, but further down that river, we are determined to get it in where we can and when we can, because it's so important, that river, and we have done that. So, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that, guys. Thank you. Planning appeals. Are you happy to note the planning appeals? Fabulous. Okay, and then that's the end of our business. There's no part 2. I'm going to close the meeting. Mr. Williams.